G'day and welcome back to my channel. Now have I got a treat for you today. Look at this. It's an original 1966 white box Airfix Classic, The Revenge. And we believe this one is in 1:144 scale. Although Airfix never really mentioned it. But when I compared it to my St. Louis, which we know is that scale, it seems to have the same size sort of comparative details. So it's about that size, although they just kind of did the kit's box size a lot of the time. Airfix did release a 1/600 version of this, but I mean, it was tiny. It's a little thing like this. So this is at least 4 times bigger than that. Well, I picked this up for only 5 shekels some years ago on eBay. And I didn't realise at the time how rare it was. I was just looking to complete my collection of Airfix ship kits, and try and get them as original as I could. Now, I would hesitate to think what this is worth. But that doesn't matter. It's a kit in my collection. I build it. I don't buy them for resale value. But look, I have had a peek in this box. And look, it's amazing how clean, crisp and undamaged everything is inside it. Whoever had this before me kept it in, well, out of the sunlight at least, and in a reasonably cool room because nothing seems to have faded. Everything looks almost like they did back in the 60s, as I remember, when we used to open these boxes. So, would you like to look inside this box and see how lovely this ancient kit, well, ancient, it's only 60 years old like me. How would you like to see inside this box? You would? Great. Okay, let's get on with it. Roll the music. So you can see this is one of the really early Airfix white box kits. It's got the red stripes. So you can get later ones that are sort of white box, but they don't have that lovely red stripe, which means they're from the mid-60s or early 60s. So we know it is an early kit, but the box is completely undamaged. Completely, I mean, usually you get a few of these sort of inside flaps coming out, but it almost appears new still, which makes me suspicious, but once I look inside, is exactly what you would expect if you opened this up 60 years ago. Instructions are still white, which, as I said, this is the thing. It has been stored beautifully. But they are in the original print. They are the original long fold-out version, okay? And you get a huge exploded drawing. Like everything's there. That's the kit build on one page. And over here, you get what each thing is, and this is something that I used to like about the Airfix kits, is each step is numbered and it tells you the parts numbers, but it also tells you what they are. So cement lugs at the rear of the forecastle and half deck bulkheads, it goes into all this stuff. So you actually get to learn all about the names and what was going on. This was the edic, the reason that Mr. Airfix started things when he was first started doing models, is he wanted to teach history to kids. True story. So in the beginning, all the Airfix models were very detailed in the description of, the history of the particular vehicle, and then they would go into all the parts and they would tell you. And I loved all that, and that's how I learned all my nautical terms. So there you go. So you get the painting diagram for all the livery here, all the little triangles they used to paint on these Elizabethan galleons. They're very pretty. So there you go. Now, this ship shouldn't be confused with Sir Francis Drake's Golden Hind, but that Airfix kit is 1/72nd scale. This one we know is 1/44. We know that because it actually says in the instructions it was 92 feet long at the keel. Okay, so you can actually measure it off against the kit part, and this scale to this kit has to be 1/44. Now, this is interesting, these sails. Normally when you see these, they're all washed out and very yellow. I mean, these are yellow, but that was the actual colour when they came to the factory. This one, no cracks, no crunches, no breaks. They are in the same condition that you would expect if 60 years ago you opened up this box fresh from the Airfix factory. That's incredible. I've never seen a set in such good nick, ever. It's it really makes you think, well, I would use them just because of the fact that they are perfect, and then the kit will look as it should, as the manufacturer intended. But usually I end up either not having sales at all or making cloth ones. It'll be a while before I build this kit. It's one on the back of my shelf, and it's very precious to me. That's why I'm sharing it with you. I'll never sell it. Don't even make an offer. It will never get sold. Now all this wrapping I put in when I first got this kit, or I think they included some of it anyway. But it was pretty well loose in the bag. Well, the major parts were, and I don't know if there was a bag for the, no, there wouldn't have been. So I put a Ziploc one in there. That's one of my Ziploc ones. So it was, everything was loose. So it's amazing that it survived all this time and it's still in good condition. Now here's the hull, and this is where we can tell the scale, because if we measure right along the keel, okay, and then we multiply that out, we will get the 92 feet. So although this is not feet, here you go, inches. So usually, well, it depends the keel line, usually they mean the waterline there, so but about 11 inches, so you multiply that out by 144 and you should get close to 92 feet, close enough. It's in that rough scale ballpark. So there you go. Now, the detail, it's not modern detail by any stretch of imagination. There's really no wood sort of effects on there. Some people like that because at this scale, you really wouldn't see the wood grain. So it's got a tiny bit of texture, but really not much. But it'll paint up well. There's enough of all the whale lines and all the little, bracing beams here. They're all nicely rendered and they're not too thick. So they should all paint up nicely. Shouldn't be any problem there. I may have lost a little, there you go, there's pointy thing here. I haven't got one here, a little pommel that's missing off there. That's the first thing I've noticed. It's very clean. I mean, there's no sort of huge amounts of flash like I had with the St. Louis, which was a much older and more worn out mould version, whereas this would have come from pretty well the original moulds. It can't be very long in the tooth. You've still got some of the original sort of marks there, which kind of would disappear after a while, some tooling marks. So sort of, if you're using it over and over and over, things like that tend to smooth out. Not too bad. Tiniest bit of flash there. There you go. For all of you that go, oh, Airfix kit's got flash. There it is. Can you see it? There you go. You happy now? So, now, I wrapped it so that the two hull halves would never bang together, because that's what you don't want. So you can see there, that one's got a pommel. So yeah, we've lost a little pommel there. That's an easy part to scratch, really is. One of the clues we have to working out scale is a little door over here. Because if that's a door for someone, it probably is about 6 foot, 5 foot, 6 foot. So you can work out scale from that. And when we have a look at the Golden Hind, the doors are twice as high, which shows you the scale is completely different. From what we can glean history, because it's all a little bit vague, but she's believed to have about 46 guns. And there's 10 of those, or 20 of those, 10 aside, on the gun deck, on the lower decks. And then on the upper decks, she would have had another sort of 12, 13 aside. So, yeah, it was, for its period, very well armed. That's nothing like the ships later on, like the Victory with a, deck and deck, 100 guns and the rest of it. But for its time, it was quite a well-armed ship for the period. She was first laid down in 1577, so, that is a long time ago. And as I said, 92 feet long according to Airfix, 32 feet in breadth. 34 carriage and 12 civil guns. So that's basically how the armament worked. So that would give you that gives you 46. So that's about right. Now, it wasn't until 1588, sometime later, is when basically Sir Francis Drake had this ship as his flagship, and they went in to basically fend off the Spanish fleet. So Spanish came in with 129 vessels, English fleet had only 80, and only 39 of those were ships of the line, but they all managed, through the gunpowder and basically the better ability to manoeuvre. And as many historians will tell you, the English gunnery crews were well trained, so yeah, that was the thing, they got their loads out a lot faster. That's what she said anyway. Yep, so basically the end of that battle, it doesn't say it here, but at the end of the battle, the Spanish sort of limped home with about 49 or so of their ships, so, they lost a lot. The English did sort of burn a few in harbour at Calais when the Armada had sort of disappeared to Calais to sort of get away from the first barrage and onslaught, and they were licking their wounds there to come back out again. the English sent in some fire ships and destroyed quite a few. So eventually the Spanish tried to sort of limp home and get away, and the English chased after them, basically managed to knock out a few more ships. But in the end, the Spanish Armada got stuck in a storm and wrecked most of them, and as I say, only about 49 of the original 129 vessels made it home. So they went home with their tails between their legs. The deck, typical of Airfix of the period, actually does have a very, very faint sort of attempt to wood texture. Or is that my imagination? Hard to say. There is all the planking. It's raised detail. Of course, I would, as long as I've still got the material, I would sort of sand most of this down and replace with wood veneer, which gives that lovely, genuine look because it's actual wood. And I've got some planking about the right width. In fact, it's the stuff that I used on the St. Louis. So you can do that, but you can paint this up. Although this has got some scuffing. So, that might just look like wear and tear. Yes, these things are, working ships. They get a bit of wear and tear. Now, surprisingly, I sort of try to do a dry fit of the hull halves with this deck piece in to sort of show you. And it's really tricky. I might try later with some rubber bands. Because over the years, this should have looked like that. Well, I'm exaggerating it, but it should be sort of like that, and yet it's actually pointing down the other way. So, well, you can tell those two decks, that one should be up there. So this would be just the sheer fact that this is the kind of shape it is, and after all these years, it has warped. But you can still glue that in. That'd just be a matter of packing it and gluing it, and it would still be fine. So it's not really anything to whinge about, Harry. As I said, it was all loose when I got it, which is exactly how the kits were sort of presented in those days. So there's a lot of parts which have suicided off this room. So here they are. And again, when you have a look at the size of certain parts, you go, yep, that's exactly the same as the St. Louis. See that? There's doorways. Exactly the same sort of size and shape as St. Louis, which was, well, St. Louis is from about 1634 or something, 1637. So it was a few years before, but people didn't change that much in height over the time. I don't think. No, I don't think at all. Now the rest of the parts I have in this bag, and we'll explore that in a sec as we go through instructions. Typical Airfix stand for the period. They're kind of charming for what they are, and you almost tempted to use it just for nostalgia value because they do work. They work well. Now this part, which normally I throw away because it's absolute rubbish, it's either been moulded badly. These are the rat lines, by the way. It's either been moulded badly or it's just been crushed out of shape in the box. These aren't. These are as they were. They're really good. There's no real blobbiness. They're nice and fine and clean. I'd almost be tempted to use them when I was rigging this ship because they would go down well. Even if you replace the dead eyes with wood, these would go in easily, quickly, and they look great. So, this is the thing. If you're building this to replicate the kit from the time, it'd be better to try and use the kit parts. Now, nothing that hasn't faded, because not much. It's got a tiny bit of fade on it. But these are the flags. And, again, all we've got is a bit of pressure damage there from something leaning on it that would easily disappear with a bit of glue and a bit of clamping. But those are the original paper flags. So, yeah, they've got... Something's got on there, some sticky tape someone's put on it. But amazing the condition of this kit. One of the quirks, or should I say features, of an Airfix kit of this period is that you start at part 1 and then you work your way all the way through to the very last part, and that's the last part you put in. In this case, part 155. So there's probably some duplicates here because the number of parts like barrels and things, there'll be many of the same. So there's got to be over 200 parts in this kit. That's why it's a Series 8, which means it's quite complex. Your full diagram here, yes, it sort of does look daunting, but because you've got that step-by-step guide saying what to do, you simply find the part on the sprue and then have a look, and it's pretty obvious. I mean, whole parts go together and away you go. But what Airfix is giving you at least is the order. So that's pretty well how they did it. Let's have a look at some of the parts of interest. So here is the stern piece with the transom and the lovely heraldic shield there. So you have got the shield of the period. This would be Queen Elizabeth I, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's an Elizabethan galleon, so I'd say it would have to be. And Airfix has got all the planking in there, just like she did on the St. Louis, although that is a French ship, but basically got the same sort of quality of detail. It's all there. No rear-facing guns. No, wasn't any point in that. These ships were designed for quick manoeuvring and firing from a distance. They weren't really the kind that you see in a lot of the movies where they saddle up alongside and they big boarding party and off they go. So they were useless as pirate ships, unlike what a lot of Hollywood will make you believe. No, absolutely pointless. The front beak, that part, nice and clear. As you can see, the parts are very clean and very crisp. Even, this is the part I usually throw away in a lot of these kits, are the oars for the launch boats, right? And they're really nice. They're really lovely. Here's your side pieces at the stern, which is part of the gallery back there. And again, lovely parts, nicely detailed, minimal sort of business on there. But remember, you're painting this up in a huge gaudy colour scheme, so there's no point in putting tons of detail on there. Now we'll work down from the smallest sprue. Lots of little things. These are well, they've got pin rails here, although strictly speaking, that wasn't a thing. That wasn't a thing. Usually they would, well, sure there were rails, but actually having these little guys in, no, they didn't exist back then. They weren't a thing as such. So might be a bit fanciful there, yeah. Gun carriages, typical Airfix gun carriages, they're just very basic. But then again, this scale, what else are you going to get? You've got some bulkheads here. And like the one I showed you that was loose from before, they're nicely done. And again, you've got lots to paint on them. You've got lots of detail that you can paint out with all the livery, all the little sort of, you know, triangle sort of markings they had, which made them just so attractive. Very gaudy, but very nice. Some lovely little hatches, doorways. Very nice there, very nice. Masts, again, really nice detail. And they've got all the bindings moulded on, which is rather lovely. So there you go. Little bit of flash, I mean, you know, it sort of happens. But there's not much to contend with. The cannons, well, these are actually probably more like gun ones on the upper deck. So what would you call those? Sort of carry-ons or something? Swivel guns, that sort of thing. They're simple, but they're reasonably clean. Not too much to clean up on those, and they should look really nice. Look really good. Anchors, again, fairly basic, but they'll do the job. And the yokes that go with them. You've got basically the flaps for your cannon ports, if you want to seal them up. So that's always nice if you want to do that. Otherwise, you know, you have them open, as I always have. These are guns for the, well, these are barrels, so to speak, for those cannon cradles or cannon trucks. And very simple, they're the long ones. These are of a bit of a low calibre. Actually, the ones for the side of the hull, because there's no real interior detail of the hull, I don't know if you can see, but they're actually hollowed out. Look at that, aren't they lovely? Actually, I hollowed out, and they appear to be about the same size as the ones on the lower deck of St. Louis. So that approximate to, well, admittedly the French ships are French pounders and they have their own dimensions, and English pounders were slightly different. But at this scale, it's really not going to matter that much. But they are long guns, again, so that's for the period. Yeah, the barrels and the cannons got shorter as time went on, because they didn't need as much sort of, you know, well, not rifling. I don't know if they were ever rifled. Maybe they were rifled later on. Rifled is having the diagonal cut inside the bore, which makes the cannonball fly straight, puts a bit of spin on the cannonball, so it's a lot straighter. So to accomplish straight back then, they needed longer barrels. At least that's how I understand it. This is one point where the kit kind of lets you down in the dead eyes and the channels between them. They are fairly poorly moulded, mainly because I don't think they knew exactly how they looked. People that put round dead eyes on for this period, they're not always correct, and these may be more correct in that they were this kind of funny shape, but they don't look very good. So you'd have to do your research on that. Ideally, these are the right shape, they just don't seem to have much detail, and the channels look a bit bloody horrible the way they've moulded them. But, you know, you can do it however you like, really. But if you put round dead eyes on, probably not correct. They were kind of a triangular shape, or like a chevron sort of, that one. So there you go. That's that. So that's basically the parts in the kit. They're not bad for the period. For that time, they were considered sensational. They were really good. But for the modern person, well, it sort of seems, it's a bit sort of average, But you've got to think of things in context, The sails, they give you instructions there, put them in, and only some very basic rigging. So there you go. It's a very basic rigging, tying off there. But you can do your research, and there's a lot more string that goes on these things. As it was, there seemed to be less and less rigging as the ships went on from the 16th, 17th and 18th and 19th century. So there you have it. That was my look at the Airfix The Revenge. It's a classic kit from 1966. So lovely, lovely flagship of Sir Francis Drake. So, a piece well worth building for the history in it, but it's also just a kit that is an absolute classic in itself, which is hilarious because they called it classic back then. I hope you enjoyed that. There's lots more I could show on that, but we'd be here for hours. I just love this kit. It's just so lovely. There's just so much in it. There's so much that we could do with it. All right, well, look, there's buttons. There's always buttons. My life is full of buttons. I might as well be a haberdasher, the amount of buttons in my life. But hit those if you can. And if you'd like to see more videos like this and help me out, you can always buy me a curry. That'd be really good. Yes. No contracts, no nothing, just donation, whatever you can afford. Buy me a curry. That'd be lovely. And as usual, big shout out to my patrons, my YouTube members, because without them, these sort of videos couldn't exist. I basically rely on that income so that I can find the time to produce these videos for you. So that's how it goes. That's how the cookie crumbles. It is. It is. But coming up, there will be builds on my other ships, and there's lots more to come. So I look forward to doing that, and I hope you look forward to seeing it. So it's goodbye from now, from Australia, and it's hooroo from Harry Houdini.